Welcome back to FiddleUP. I'm Emerald Ray, and today we're going to be answering the question, should I go to music school? Now, you would be surprised how many times I get this question, and from people from all walks of life. You know, I know people who are in their 60s who are going back to music school. So this really is something that people consider kind of at any time and for any reason. And I just wanted to put my 2 cents in just so you you know what your options are. So in terms of going to music school for folk music, do you need to go? No. let's just get this out of the way now. There are so many great musicians who never went to music school. In fact, like the list of really famous, amazing musicians who didn't go to music school is longer than the list of people that did go to music school. So, you know, it's really, it's not something that's necessary. And I'm always saying also, it's not even necessary to know music theory to do music for a living. Like these are things that people think is necessary and is totally not necessarily necessary. So you can absolutely get by through life and be very successful and do very well, not knowing anything about either of those two things. So, you know, just to put that out there, there's no need to go to music school unless you specifically want what you want to get from a music school experience. You know, I wouldn't go to music school just to get that, just to check that box. I wouldn't go to music school if you feel like that's going to give you some kind of clout, because it isn't. It's not like, you know, it's not like going to medical school, you know, where you need to go to medical school to be a doctor, to get certified and all that stuff. It's not like that at all. At all. So it's not something that's necessary. So we're kind of coming out of the generation now, I feel, of people who feel like you absolutely need to go to college for everything. We're really moving out of that era now. I feel like, you know, people kind of know that you can get most info on the internet now. So, but there are solid reasons to go to school, and I would be hypocritical to tell you not to go to music school, because I did plenty of music school. I went to Berklee College of Music and I majored in film scoring, which is writing music for a film. I also took a ton of performance classes. So I pretty much basically got a performance minor, but minors weren't a thing at that time. If I went there now, I'd probably have a performance minor, but it just wasn't set up like that back then. So I, you know, went to one of the most prestigious music schools in the world, and then I went off to the University of Glasgow in Scotland, and I studied over there. And so doing general musicology, so it was like very academic. It was non-practical music degree. Yeah, so it was, you know, I got a full gamut of non-folk music education. While it was really important for me to not study traditional music while I was in school, or as little as possible. So I was studying jazz, classical. I did a little bit of klezmer music. That was the only thing that I did that was traditional, or, you know, folk music, like, you know, and I did, you know, film scoring and all these different things. But I really wasn't interested in studying folk music because I was getting so much of that from my already blossoming traditional music career. I was winning Scottish fiddle competitions at the time, and, you know, it's not that I didn't need to learn anything in terms of Scottish music or Celtic music goes, but you can just pick that up anywhere. You know, I was learning direct from all these fiddle players that I was going to their workshops and fiddle camps and things like that. So I got a lot more of that from private lessons from people in fiddle camps than I ever feel like I would have going through a traditional music program at that time. But again, that was my particular choice. So just to give you a background on where I come from, that was my whole ethos was, I'll just pick up the fiddle music along the road and I'll go to music school to get the classical and the jazz and the composition and all of that stuff is what I was focusing on. So I feel like that was a good move because I really got the most out of the actual tried and true music school experience. I went and got all of the music school stuff, all the theory, all the composition, all the technology. It was a jazz school, so I got all the jazz. And so I really wanted to get what Berklee had to offer out of Berklee. So, but that was back in the days before. Now they have this roots department. You can literally walk in and just do bluegrass the whole time. And so that was before that time. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, pay $80,000 to learn how to play bluegrass. If you want to do that, go ahead. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't justify that. I didn't pay that. I was there long enough that it didn't cost that amount of money. But a long time ago now. But do you see what I mean? Like I kind of was not a believer in the trad programs. There were other, or I just didn't feel like it was for me. But there are other places that you can go to college to learn trad music. You can go to the University of Limerick. You can go to the Royal Conservatoire in Glasgow. There's all kinds of really cool trad programs that if you really want to go to university in Europe and study traditional music, I'm sure in Sweden they have a similar, Swedish music program. If you want to go to school and you just want to study folk music in the music school system, then that's great if that's what you want to do. I would support that fully if you feel like that's your dream to do that. And, if you want to do the roots program at Berklee, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But it's kind of, I feel like it's I just always felt like it was a weird way to learn folk music. And, just because you can pick it up everywhere, what those programs tend to be really good at is getting a whole bunch of young people together who want to start a band and go on tour. So for instance, the University of Limerick in Ireland is famous for churning out Irish band after Irish band after Irish band who all come and tour in the States all the time because that's kind of what the program is for. It's more for, that's kind of like what Berklee was back in the day when I went there. People weren't there to finish. They were there to find a band to play with, and then they went off on tour and they just never came back and didn't graduate. So that's kind of a little bit more like what I feel like music school, I kind of wish there were more music schools like that where you could just kind of come for a year, meet some people and leave. Because I feel like that's a little bit more like a startup incubator experience, when people, who want to be startup entrepreneurs come and they get in these little pods and they stay there for 8 weeks and they get their funding and then they leave. It's kind of like more like what I wish a lot of music schools would be. But yeah, the downside is you get locked into this, university system and they don't like it when you go on tour and they don't, things like that. So, Berklee used to be a little bit better about students going on tour. When I was there, they wanted you to go on tour. They were like, yeah, go. And now they're not like that anymore. And I think a lot of the music schools aren't like that anymore. And I don't think that's cool. Like, this is kind of like it served its purpose at a certain point if that was what you were going there for, so you should encourage people to actually go out into the wild, I think. So that's my thoughts on the different music school programs. If you want to go do a whole classical program, if you want to go do a jazz program, if you want to get away from folk music a little while and really get steeped in something else, if you want to go do one of those trad programs and, find a band and go on, tour the world, then I think that's a great thing to do if that's what you want to do. I just want to say that you don't necessarily have to do that. And, just getting out and learning new music and gigging, and I feel like having mentors is really great. And a lot of times when people are going to music school, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for mentorship through these programs. And Sometimes the people running these programs have a lengthy tour experience and a lot to share mentorship wise. Sometimes they've been stuck in an office and, in a classroom for a really long time, and they don't remember what it was like on the outside. So, it depends on who you're studying with and what their experience is. There are a lot of music teachers who have been in the classroom for a really long time and haven't necessarily walked the touring walk as much as they say they have or want you to think they have, because that's what they're kind of selling. But so I would be careful. I would make sure when you're studying with people, you know who you're studying from and that they're definitely people who have lived the life, if you know what I mean. In terms of learning things on your own, if you decide you don't want to do that, you don't want to spend all that money, you don't want to move to, wherever, you don't want to move to Ireland, Scotland, East Tennessee, Boston, New York, whatever. If you don't want to do that and you want to make sure you're giving yourself a great education, I would just make sure that you're booking some private lessons with a lot of people that you really love. And people are so accessible these days. Booking a coaching session with one of your favorite artists is definitely not something that's out of the realm of possibility. You can ask somebody if they'll sit down for an hour with you and just talk about one subject. And sometimes, you can sit down for an hour with somebody who's one of your favorite artists of all time, and they can just tell you more in an hour than you would ever learn in a year at music school. Like, really, I'm not even joking. Just finding the right person to answer the right questions and finding the right person who's going to prompt you to ask the right questions is it's just so great. It's so you can't put a price on it. It's totally priceless. So in terms of your continuing education, making sure you have people who are a little bit above you or way above you who can answer all your questions and give you the just the perspective and the sort of foresight that they have and the wisdom that they've gained over the years, or maybe the mistakes that they've made that you shouldn't make, or all that kind of thing. But just getting your mind out of the mentality of everything needing to be structured is a good way to go, because you can always see a little bit of your path in front of you, and just saying, okay, well, I'm here, I would like to be here. How do I get there? Who can I ask? And just kind of figuring out what your own path is, macheting your way through the woods of your own path is what we all have to do. And those of us who are professional musicians, even if we did go to music school, that was by no means maybe even the most important part of our education. Like, all of us started learning music when we were little and played our instruments and learned our instruments for at least 10 years before even going to music school. And then music school was one thing, and then after music school, we're all still learning tunes, we're all still writing new music, we're all still constantly learning and pushing ourselves. So I think for people who went to music school, I think we all look at it like, that was one snapshot in time, but that absolutely wasn't everything. It certainly wasn't the be all and end all for most of us. It could have been a really strong springboard, but it's not going to make or break your career in any stretch of the imagination, for sure. So I hope that answered some questions for you. I hope you have more questions for me. Feel free to send them in, and I will see you in the next video.